we're ready to go.
So what amazes you most about the internet today? And what do you think is going to be the next step?
What's the most amazing? Well, I think actually what's amazing about it, in fact, computing generally, but the internet is really the alpha example, and that is the degree to which it has completely dominated our lives now. I mean, we always are connected. We always want to be connected. You know, we've got our smartphones and we're online, and this really seems to be just the way it's going to be. The future. This is the future. We are using the internet pretty much continuously, and it's like almost everything that comes up, you need to find word definitions. You Google this, that, and the other thing. Somebody has, you know, arguments that you know, the Guinness Book of World Records was supposed to solve in bars gets solved now by somebody pulls out their smartphone and Googles the question, and you know, these things get answered right away. And this dependence, or I don't know if this dependence is the quite word, but the application of the technology to give us access to all this information and all these tools. I mean, there's lots of services that we use. This has really completely captivated us all, and I think that to me, that's the thing that's astonishing. Because, you know, when I started in computing, my personal view was that this was actually pretty cool. I was kind of a geeky guy, and I liked this kind of stuff, but nobody else was interested in it, or even cared about it, or knew any vocabulary about it. And now, you know, people just sort of casually use the word algorithm all the time, and it's like, algorithm, man, there's years and decades in the past where that was really a word no one knew the definition of, and now they may not know the definition of it, but they certainly understand what the concept is all about. So it really has taken over life as we once known it is gone, and this is neat. So I think it's fun. It's been fun to watch it develop. But you know, I think Niels Bohr said, you know, prediction's tough, especially the future. I think it's really hard to say what's going to happen next. I think it's clear that in the very near term, we're just going to get much better bandwidth, that this is already in the works. People want better bandwidth. You know, listen to everybody complain about how the data plan for their phone is not delivering the bits that they want and everything else. And you know, you have your high definition TV, but you know, manipulating the files is expensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the computers and the communication are going to have greater capacity. So I think that's clear. I think it's much less obvious how people are going to figure out how to, you know, give new services, and you know, the next Twitter, you know, what's it going to be? Well, you know, there's lots of things that people want to do socially, so you can expect more in that dimension. But I think there's probably lots of ways in which information can be applied, you know, either socially or, you know, just to specific application areas that will take off and be very, very valuable. It is hard to predict, because in some sense it's like Twitter. Who would have thought, you know, 5 years ago, before Twitter, because it's less than YouTube by quite a bit. You know, who would want to be able to exchange these little short messages all the time? I mean, is this really a decent application? But you know, everybody loves it, and it's a valuable resource for lots of people. And you know, people have figured out how to use it in politics and organizing, you know, rebellions against the government and things like that. So there are lots of different applications of it that are actually very significant. Yet the start, you wouldn't have even guessed that this was an application that anybody even cared about. So I think it's pretty much impossible to conjecture, you know, what would fill a niche that isn't filled right now and people would really like to have. But for sure, there's going to be more and more and more, and as it becomes more and more ubiquitous to us all, we will have more and more opportunities to apply it in areas that you would never have thought of in the first place. So more to come, but I wouldn't have the foggiest idea what that's going to be.
Well, if you think about areas of our lives which are now using the internet or impacted by the internet, it's hard to come up with one that, you know, our finances,
Mm-hmm.
shopping,
Mm-hmm.
commerce of all kinds,
Mm-hmm.
dating,
Mm-hmm.
just basic social interactions, you know, with Twitter and Facebook and
iChat and everything else.
yeah,
Yes,
all that
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
Can you think of any part that isn't yet?
Well, we don't have the online funeral probably, that's coming, but, people are very interested, for example, on, what is their legacy that's left online when they die. I mean, this has become quite a hot topic recently as people discuss, so what will be left? How can I actually kill off my, my accounts after I'm dead, So, I'm sure there's lots of developments in that area, but I don't imagine personally that that's going to be a particularly interesting one. It's hard to say. I mean, I think to some degree what we've seen is that this technology has insinuated itself. But I think Twitter in this case is a good example because we had Facebook, we had MySpace. These social networks already existed, so you would have said, if we were having this conversation 3 years ago, you would have said, I'm not sure there's really any space here for something like Twitter, a little text message. Who really cares? But there it is. I mean, this thing caught fire like mad, and it's doing great. Yet it seems to be, a variation in some sense on these other social network services, but in a way that has certain advantages that they lack. So I think we've already seen some entry in most aspects of our lives, but probably there's lots of wiggle room in every one of these areas to do more stuff and to do things that even if it seems like we're already using it extensively, there's probably other ways to do it. So there we are.